Okay. I'm going to go to Suzanne. Being specific, what are both the advantages and the disadvantages of a strong mayor form of government?
Elected mayor form of government, I choose not to use the word strong mayor, unless I can't answer that question because you said strong. Elected mayor. What I think, specifically, I think the time may be, and sometimes, and I know we've had 3 or 4 iterations of this, but what we have right now is very fractional leadership. We have leaders that emerge, and that's fine. Leaders that emerge with a very potent issue in a particular neighborhood come, whatever the commission does with it, yay or nay, they go back into the womb of the neighborhood. I think it's inconsistent leadership. Therefore, if it's inconsistent, it's undependable. I think we may now be ready to look at an elected mayor, and I will say, I will add this caveat that the devil is in the details. I want to look hard and fast at the language, but I think we need to look at how this could work on a lot of reasons. But you say specifically, because of the type of leadership we have, it is undependable and inconsistent at this point.
What I'm asking is, what would be the advantages and the disadvantages?
Because I think
give us the advantages too. I think you've given the disadvantages.
The advantages are just what I said. You have someone that comes in, inconsistent leaders in different neighborhoods, and then they go back in. If you have an elected mayor, you elect the appropriate elected mayor, and I know that's loaded answer, that you have someone that will have purview of this whole city, that can take a particular neighborhood that has an issue, draw it into the broader context of the whole city, that this issue isn't just from Hudson Bayou or Laurel Park or Indian Beach. It's for everybody, and that's what we need, to have someone that can lead the city with issues that are broad-based. That's what I think we need right now.
Thank you very much. Susan, moving municipal elections to November has been proposed. Describe in detail the advantages and the disadvantages of retaining our local elections in the spring rather than the fall, please.
The advantage of moving it to November is that that is a known election date. So people who don't pay that much attention, a lot of the people who made excuses about their not voting in March because they forgot about it, they will know that there is a November election. The disadvantages are really clear right now, is that which election would we move to November? Would we move the first election to November or the runoff to November? The elections that are in November tend to be more partisan. And so we have nonpartisan elections. This would make it more partisan. In addition, if you run grassroots campaigns, which most city commission campaigns are, you're going to have a lot of difficulty with getting volunteers, helpers. They'll be working on the national campaigns. And it's going to cost a lot more money for the local campaigns to have the attention they deserve. So the advantage of keeping it in March is that we have it clear when the first election is, which is the most important, and that's what calls out most of the candidates. We have the first election when people know that it's a separate election, when they can vote on those candidates. And then the second election would be 60 days later, unfortunately, for the few military ballots that we actually get. If we go to November, is the first election going to be in August when only 15% of the city residents turn out? And then we will have our limited choices in November? Or are we going to have all of our choices in November and then have the runoff right after the holidays? We're going to face low turnout in one election either way.
Thank you. Describe in detail, please, the role of a commissioner in the commission-manager form of government.
Well, the commissioner, very simply, the commissioner and commissioners set policy. The city manager carries it out. He's the arms and legs. Do you want to know specifically how a commissioner would work, in my opinion, or do you want to know how they would work with the city manager?
That's right, sir. Thank you. Suzanne?
He has a question.
I asked you a question.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure of your question. Do you want to know how a commissioner would work, or how a commissioner would work with a city manager?
The role of the commissioner in that form of government.
Different. I think the role of a commissioner, any commissioner in any form of government, is to represent his constituency and to spend a lot of time listening to that constituency and finding out what they want out of their city government. Not what you want out of the city government, what they want out of the city government. Joe Barbetta said to me on more than one occasion, he's had votes that have come up that he personally did not agree with, but he felt that they were right for the majority of the people, and they were the right thing to do. So he put his personal feelings aside and said, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to vote for what the people want. And I think you've got to be able to listen to all the people. You've got to be able to listen to the neighborhood folks and the downtown folks, different issues, noise issues, growth issues, everything else. The commissioner has to listen more and talk less, and then make up your mind how you're going to proceed on city business. But it's all about listening to that constituency. I think that's the most important thing a city commissioner can do.
Thank you. Suzanne, why is the 2050 issue important to the city government?
You know, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get my... Since, actually, I have been thinking about this, because I remember when I ran 2005 and 2009, we talked about the urban service boundary. I think it's very important. I really do think we need to maintain the integrity of the 2050 plan. Now, I could go into many reasons why. This was the ultimate compromise that happened. And I know it's going to be tweaked on May 8th, and I know we're going to have many different meetings about it. I won't be making that decision. But as far as I am worried about job sprawl. I'm worried about decentralization. I'm worried about downtown, obviously maintaining the integrity without breaching the urban service boundary, so that we can attend to what we need to do with our compact downtown built out city right now. I think the village concept, the urban design out there with this 2050 was an amazing compromise. And the reason a lot of it isn't working is probably because of the recession, and I know there are a few other people who would agree with me, disagree with me, but we need to maintain that because I think it's going to benefit the city of Sarasota. A lot of people have said to me, why are you even talking about 2050? What's that got to do with the city of Sarasota? It's about decentralization, it's about job, what's the word I just said? Sprawl. Yeah, sprawl. I'm very worried about sprawl, and that is something that we need to really pay attention to here, because I'm concerned about jobs coming downtown. I want people to come live downtown, live in our condos or rental apartments that they can eventually afford here, and not be displaced out in the county. And I think that's a critical thing for our downtown.
Susan, give 2 reasons, please, why Walmart should have or should not have been approved.
It didn't meet the code. It didn't meet the code. I mean, there were plenty of competent experts who talked about what the code is, and there are 2 reasons why it didn't meet the code. It didn't meet the code because it didn't meet the definition of a department store and a neighborhood shopping center. And the other reason is you have to consider compatibility when you consider whether to do a site plan approval, which is what came before the planning board. And one of the issues with regard to compatibility was not just that it was a super center, but that it was also a 24-hour center. And that 24-hour operation is very inconsistent with a single-family neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Richard, why should the city be doing anything to enhance environmental protection? Or should the city be doing anything to enhance environmental protection? If so, name 2 specific actions or policies you would recommend.
I think that the city most definitely should be looking at environmental protection, and probably one of the things that I hear over and over again is our stormwater situation, the runoff from our lawns, because we don't have curbs in some places, and you've got fertilizer and things going into runoff and going into the bay. I think that's probably going to be something that we should address. And we have other stormwater issues, the flooding in Harbor Acres, things like that. I consider that an environmental issue. I think beach renourishment is a huge environmental issue. Our beaches are economic generators. We want to make sure we've got lots and lots of yards of beach in front of us. We don't want it washing away. I think that's very, very important. As a city, again, the beach is a huge, huge driver. I think that's important, and the stormwater issues are important.
Thank you. Suzanne, would you give parking meters another try? And if so, would you put them in all of the business districts in the city?
Oh, this is the bane of my existence. And it's interesting, we just came off Jeff Speck's visit, noted architect that came here, and I have to admit, and look, I can be humorous about this, but I'm very serious about downtown, and I can do a mea culpa on many levels. He said third time is a charm. It's about how we do it. I think the machines, and we talked a bit before about making back and forth decisions. That was tough. And I was upset. A prior commission, Commissioner Clapp was on the commission that we voted to get the parking meters. Then the present commission voted against them. Yes, I guess that was indecision, but it was also called governing because everybody had their view on what parking meters meant to the downtown business community. I think at some point, parking meters is a critical component of a downtown management parking transportation system. I really believe it is. How we do it is different. We could bring back different forms of it, but those machines, I gotta admit, my husband couldn't even see them, and I had to deal with that. I get it, mea culpa, but I still think we need that return. We need that revolving when people come to certain areas downtown, not everywhere. We need to plan that beautifully so that some of the restaurants on Restaurant Row, some of them may have it so that there is that kind of in and out, because it's already a problem down there with one restaurant that called me and said, people can't come in because there's no parking there, and they don't want to go in the garage. So.
Would you put them in all the business districts in the city?
We got to look at fairness on that. I'm not sure because I think everybody is not the same. You've got Southside Village, you've got St. Armand's. St. Armand's, I would like to see a parking structure up there. As far as parking meters, I would not make a blanket statement at this point about putting them everywhere. You need to start at the core. The core defines, I think, the whole city. How we do it also is important.
Okay, as a follow-up on that, if not, why would you selectively disadvantage the Main Street businesses?
Well, I think that's open for question. A lot of people did send me nasty emails saying that, not a lot, actually 2 businesses, that they were going out of business because of my parking meters, and I caused them to go out of business. I'm not necessarily sure that's true. I don't know the relationship, and I have not been shown the relationship between a failure of a business and that short period of time that we had parking meters. A number of people just loved it and missed them, not the stations, but they missed the concept because it kept it going. So I think, I'm not so sure that it was the demise of businesses because of parking meters. I have no proof of that.
Thank you. Susan? Being specific, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a commission manager form of government?
The disadvantages are if you get a bad manager. The advantages are, all studies show that it's the most efficient form of management, having professional management and a board, consensus policy-making board. There was an IBM study called Better, Faster, Cheaper, and they found that management mattered a lot, and that city manager, council forms of government were 10% more efficient than having a political mayor. In addition, with regard to city manager commission forms of government, there was a study for 24/7 Wall Street, and most of the cities that were the best managed cities or the best cities in the United States were city manager forms of government. The worst cities happen to be the mayor form of government. The reason that the Civic League originally came up with the city manager council form of government is it is the anti-corruption form of government. It is also in the late 20th century and this century, it is the form of management that is the standard now for corporations. Diffuse management, management by consensus, that is the modern form of management in corporations. And in addition, it is the form of management in our county, our school board, our airport, and all of the other major governmental institutions in Sarasota. And so, if we're going to start with the mayor, why don't we start with the county and see how it works?
Richard, how would you change the current city policy with respect to outdoor music and entertainment?
I don't know if I change the current city policy. I think what I'd be looking at more strongly is trying to enforce the current city policy. I think it's, you've got decibel levels, you've got measurement levels. You can measure here, it's going to be one thing. You're going to measure there, it's going to be another thing. Unless we get the enforcement part of this equation correct and figure that one out first and how it affects the city, whether the enforcement we have is actually working or not. I don't think it's working right now. You only have 2 enforcement officials at the moment, so you can't possibly be everywhere. I think we've got to rejig the enforcement and then decide what we're going to do going forward, because we're not getting an accurate picture of exactly what's going on with our noise ordinances right now. We've got a lot of people complaining it's too loud here, it's not loud enough there, whatever. Let's get some sort of uniform enforcement and build up a body of evidence as to exactly what's going on, and then decide what we're going to tweak, what we're going to change, if anything.
Thank you. Suzanne, why are you allowing the PBA to interfere with the effective management of our police department?
Why am I allowing?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of our negotiations with the PBA and all that, you got to look at this from a collective bargaining perspective. Your question was, why am I allowing the PBA
to interfere with the effective management of our police department?
Well, the PBA is the PBA. They're the union. They're going to do what they're going to do. As far as the city commission, when we come up in the next few months on negotiations, we need to really be careful on how we approach this. There's a lot of collective bargaining involved. We have a lot to do here as far as our police pensions. And I can go into that. We have a task at hand, how to deal with non-bonded indebtedness, quite frankly, which is our police pension and how that's going to bear out in the next many, many years. You bet that's going to be a serious one, but as far as letting, I don't quite understand that. We've got some heavy negotiations coming up.
Thank you. Susan, should the CRA be extended, and why or why not?
Wow, that's a really hard one. The CRA has taken some taken some funds that should be used in general for the entire city, and it's very costly. I just watched part of the hearing that was last Monday, or the Monday before last, with some of the figures of how costly it is for the city in terms of money and the future cost of the CRA. And one of the discussions was having the county be responsible for the CRA. But one of the things that we're having to deal with the county is that they seem to be interested in disinvesting in the city with the extension of the 2050 plan or the changing of the 2050 plan. It's a really hard situation because we're coming out of a deep recession and businesses are needy, but the neighborhoods are needy too, and this takes a lot of tax dollars. And I tend to agree with some of the concerns that Commissioner Turner raised about continuing the CRA with the city obligation being too costly for the city.
Thank you. Richard, what is the current density in downtown, Rosemary, and North Trail? And specify what you think it should be in each location, please.
Downtown is 50, the edge is 25. Downtown is 50, the edge is 25, North Trail is 35, Bayfront's 50. I would like to see downtown density increased. I'm not sure exactly how much, probably at least 75. I would like to see the North Trail increase, probably the same amount. That being said, I don't think we can look at density applications and changes in density on sort of an overall basis. I think we've got to look at things on a piece-by-piece basis. There's going to be, you know, on the North Trail, you've got 11-acre plots, you've got 8-acre plots, you've got quarter-acre plots. You can't treat a 1-acre plot the same way you're going to treat an 11-acre plot. And you also have neighborhoods that are abutting certain plots. So I think I've always sort of advocated, and everything I've discussed is let's look at these parcels individually and decide where we're going to go on an individual basis. I think downtown it's the same thing. You know, you're going to increase the density. You know, how high are you going to go? Where is that density going to go? You don't want to put an 18-story building up against somebody's neighborhood, so they're not going to see the sun all day. So again, it's really hard to come up with a hard and fast rule and just make this one overlay for these areas. You've got to look at, I think, on a parcel-by-parcel basis. Not easy, but I think that's something you've got to look at.
Thank you. Suzanne, how do you justify your vote to sell the park at Beneva and Fruitville? And then, how do you justify selling it for half its appraised value?
You know, I have a couple of updates on that. I mean, this is so far from a done deal. And that was a sole source